Hi, I'm Brian. Today, I'm going to show you how I finished the roof pieces of my Mournstead project that is inspired by The Witcher 3: Wild Hunt. This is part 2 of a multi-part series where I'm printing a 3D printed model of the Mournstead Tavern that was designed by the group World of Pratheron. If you haven't seen part 1, you can click on this link to check it out. The tavern is inspired by the local inn that is at the center of the village of White Orchard, the tutorial area of The Witcher 3. My project is not sponsored by or endorsed by World of Pratheron or anyone who is involved with the creation of the 3D models. I'm just printing and painting the set for fun. It took 80 hours to print all the pieces of the tavern set, and I managed to print everything on my 3D printer over 6 days. Picking up from where I left off in the last video, I had resprayed my roof pieces with a coat of medium brown spray paint because I did not like the dark brown color I had originally used as the base coat. Dry brushing light brown paint over the surface made both colors stand out way too much. I needed the base coat to be lighter so that the highlights from the dry brushing wouldn't be as obvious. After spraying each piece, I had to leave them outside to dry for nearly a week. I don't know what caused it, but the spray paint had a really strong odor, much stronger than what I would normally expect from spray paint. After a day had passed, I tried to start painting the roof pieces, but the spray paint odor was irritating me, so that's why I left the pieces outside for several days. When the odor finally went away, I could start dry brushing the roof pieces. I started with one of my light brown paints to use for the first layer of dry brushing. This time it didn't stand out so much and it seemed like repainting the base coat was the right idea. I took my time and was careful with the dry brushing because I didn't want to put too much paint in one spot. The entire process didn't take too much time and I was finished with all the roof pieces in about 15 minutes. The next layer of dry brushing used an even lighter shade of brown, but unfortunately the paint was old and clumpy. I mixed the paint with some matte medium to thin it out, and it's not very noticeable on camera, but the paint was still too thick. I was careful to wipe off as much paint as I could from my brush before continuing the dry brushing step. After I had painted each piece, I looked at my reference images again and noticed that the wood parts of the roof are a different color than the straw thatching that covered the roof. That makes sense because they're different materials, but everything on my pieces is the same brown base color with light brown highlights. I thought about repainting the wood parts because there are significantly fewer parts to paint, but then whatever color I chose would need to be the same color I used for the rest of the tavern. I'm planning on using my medium brown spray paint as the base coat, so for the rest of the tavern I would have to find a color that closely matches or try to mix something custom, which I'm not confident I could do. It would make more sense to repaint the thatching parts because they're lighter in color than the wood, but that would mean I need to use a lot of paint to recover about 90% of what I had already painted. After thinking about this for a while, I decided to leave the paint as it is for now and move on. I might repaint the thatching later, but I'll see how the roof looks after all the other pieces have been painted. The last step was to add some green paint for moss on the roof pieces. The moss is a very subtle shade of green, so I used a piece of an old sponge to dab the paint on random parts of the roof pieces. I thought the roof pieces would be the easiest part of my project, but instead it turned into 2 weeks of prep and waiting for paint to dry. I didn't have to start over and cover up the first base coat, but I think doing it again paid off and it made the roof look better. It also showed me that choosing the colors I want to use is more important to me than making an exact replica of what I can see in the video game. Thanks for watching my video, and stay tuned for part 3 where I get started on painting the first floor of the tavern.